Hello, students, and welcome to our first lecture on the unit for cell communication. Go ahead and pause your screen to complete your bell work. While you guys are pausing your screen, I am going to share my screen and show you a little bit about the Canvas layout. So here is your home screen. If you scroll down on your home screen, you can click this button to go straight to the announcements, or you can click this button to go straight to the modules. Here is where you will see that announcement that was posted today, which says you need to assign yourself to a group. So make sure that you are doing that. And next we'll go to the modules. You can go back to the home screen and you can click modules down here, or you can just simply use the modules button on the left side of the screen here. Okay, now hopefully you guys have all gotten the hang of this. So we're right now on the cell communication and the cell cycle module. Here's your new start here page, but I have decided that I'm going to also put everything within this module. So here's where you'll be able to see the new lectures and assignments will all be organized here as well. Now I want to show you guys when you're trying to assign yourself a group, which is for an upcoming assignment. We need you to do this by Friday or else a group will be assigned for you. I'm going to show you the student view. So you should be able to go to groups and add yourself to one of these groups. So that is how you will add yourself to a group, and make sure that you stay on top of it. We are done with the animal behavior discussion board, so please do not accidentally add yourself to one of these groups. And I just wanted to note that when you're inside of these groups, for example, we will go to this group here. We don't want to publish any of our work within the discussion board for this group. Rather, we want to submit it to the assignments tab here when you're submitting any type of a milestone for this assignment. All right, we are going to get on with the lecture. Okay, so this unit we're talking about cell communication, and we will also be talking about the cell cycle. So cells can communicate with each other even when they are distant in the body. So your brain can still tell your feet to walk. How do we accomplish this? Well, there are different mechanisms by which cells are able to communicate with other structures in the body, such as cells, tissues, organ systems, etc. We can do this by having a ligand, which is a chemical signal. It's a molecule that is going to bind to a specific receptor site on a distant target cell. The receptor protein is the protein that is embedded into the target cell's cell membrane, and it is ligand specific. So this ligand will travel to that target cell and bind to the receptor to send a message which will be received by the target cell. Interactions of these two components initiates the process of signal transduction, which converts the information in the signal into a cellular response. So this is the way in cells communicate, in that we communicate by talking, where you can understand my words, but cells speak a different language. They speak with molecules which cause a secondary reaction to a target cell. So ligands, sometimes you'll see these called substrates or particles, or sometimes you'll see them called ions, but it doesn't matter. Ligand is the general term for the chemical signal that is sent to a target cell, which binds to a receptor. After binding to the receptor, this tells the target cell that something is happening. So it gives the target cell this method of communicating with a specific lock and key fit, to where a specific ligand is only good for a specific receptor that it will bind to. Here's another animation of it. So we have our cell membrane here, which divides the external environment from the internal environment. So some type of hydrophilic ligand will have to bind to a receptor because it can't just freely float through the plasma membrane. After it binds to its receptor site, it causes some kind of transduction pathway within the intracellular environment for the target cell. On the other hand, sometimes you can have hydrophobic ligands which require no specific receptor site because they are freely able to flow through this plasma membrane. After flowing through the plasma membrane, they are able to bind to a receptor that is within the internal environment of the cell, of the target cell, that is. This binding of the receptor to the ligand is the initiation of the signal transduction pathway and allows for the target cell to have its own specific response. There are 4 basic mechanisms for cellular communication, although we called them different things in our initial video that I gave you guys from YouTube. This is also acceptable for you guys. So we can have direct contact for cell-to-cell communication. We can have synaptic signaling, paracrine signaling, endocrine signaling, and some cells can also send messages to themselves, and this is called autocrine signaling. So with our direct contact, cells are required to be within a certain vicinity of an adjacent cell in order to receive the signal. The cells both have to be functioning and in order to best communicate. So all of these mechanisms can be disrupted if one cell is not reacting well, which can honestly cause a cascade of difficult reactions. For example, if you think about your heart is made of a whole bunch of different types of cardiac cells, which are muscular and will contract in order to generate the blood throughout the body. So these cardiac cells, also called cardiomyocytes or cardiac muscle cells, they're in direct contact with one another, but sometimes you have an infarction where a certain area of the heart has been denied its oxygen supply, and that makes those cells without oxygen die, an area of infarct they can call it. So this infarction resulting in the cell death of cardiomyocytes, it's going to cause problems with the contractility and the conduction of the heart. So the cells aren't able to communicate to that area of dead cell tissue, and therefore the communication methods result in decline. And because of this decline, your heart is not working to its proper functioning capacity. Synaptic signaling occurs between two cells where there is a junction between them called the synaptic cleft, and a lot of times this happens between neurons and a target cell, or it can happen from one neuron to another neuron. And neurotransmitters are used as the chemical messenger in this type of cell-to-cell signaling, where a neurotransmitter is released and binds to a specific receptor on the target cell to pass the message on to the next cell. Although these two cells are not in direct contact due to the synaptic cleft having a small area of space between them, they can communicate with cells within their direct vicinity. However, due to our wide neural network throughout our whole body, neurons are able to communicate with nearly every single cell in our body and can send signals very quickly. Think, for example, that you want to walk. That is how fast your neurons can travel through your body. Your brain is telling your leg muscle to move via this wide neural network. So you can't even fathom how fast these synaptic signals can fire. Paracrine signaling is another type of reaction where there is a localized signal and it's local. So this is not for distant structures. The target cells are within close proximity to each other, but there is an external signal sent from one cell that is not adjacent to another. That is not directly in contact with the cell next to it. Endocrine signaling deals with endocrine type of glands which secrete different hormones that have target cells throughout the body. Endocrine signaling is how we maintain a lot of our homeostatic functions and communicate when our body is not maintaining homeostasis. So we're going to talk a little bit about homeostasis in this chapter, and this will be one of our introductory assignments to go back and define some of these broad terms that you guys should know from Biology 1. This one was definitely found in your first introduction video. Some cells send signals to themselves, which is called autocrine signaling. Now let's talk about some of these words. Auto, for example. Auto means self, so this can help you remember that it is a self signal. Endo means within. So endocrine type of glands have the hormone within them, and then they send them to a different place. So the signal is coming from the cell itself. And para means around or surrounding. So you can think of paracrine signaling as signaling to the cells that are in the direct vicinity of that type of gland. Okay, so this is going to take a deeper dive into each of those that we just spoke about. So molecules, for direct contact, molecules on the surface of one cell are recognized by receptors on the adjacent cell. You can almost think of this as having a transporter. So while they aren't really sharing a receptor and ligand, they are in such direct contact that it looks like the ligand can be transported from one cell into another. These are really important in early development, and they help with differentiation. When we start with very fewly differentiated cells, our future cells lose a lot of these gap junctions. But one important gap junction in the body are the cardiac cells of the heart, which have the ability to transmit electrical signals in a quick and efficient function to allow for our heart to contract in one area at the same time. That's why the 4 chambers of our heart are able to contract differentially, but also at the same time. While these tissues of our cardiac system, like our heart, are made from the same material, we have 4 distinctive chambers which all propagate together in order to contract simultaneously. So animals use synaptic signaling a lot. This is how we are able to have the higher functions of our brain control the rest of our body. So this is frequently seen in animals. Nerve cells are going to be the one that is sending the signal, which in this case the chemical signal is a neurotransmitter. This neurotransmitter is released into the synaptic cleft, or also called in this picture the synaptic gap. And this neurotransmitter has a specific receptor on the target cell, which binds to the target cell and elicits some type of response for the target cell. Paracrine signaling is a signal released from a cell that has an effect on cells around it. This is also important in early development because you're actually kind of like secreting into the general space where you don't have to think about where the target is. It's just going to affect these neighboring cells. It coordinates clusters of neighboring cells, and it's a huge component in signaling immune cells. So one of the groups this week is going to have the Claudin cascade, which is hugely important for paracrine signaling. Let's have another example be a foreign pathogen. So let's say you get COVID into your lungs. You've breathed in this COVID virus. Well, what's going to happen is it's going to attack the initial cell, and that cell is going to release thousands of signals to the rest of your body, warning of foreign invaders coming into the body. And what your body does is it's able to read these signals, have secondary cells come to the site. For example, your white blood cells will come here and start trying to fight off this pathogen just because your original cell said there is an invader and I need help, and it creates this paracrine signal and calls other cells to the site of attack for additional help. Endocrine signaling. So endocrine is actually a huge part of our body systems functioning. So endocrine glands work by secreting, producing, storing hormones. And these hormones are released by these endocrine glands into the circulatory system or the bloodstream, and they have target cells that are going to be affected by these hormones being released throughout the body. This is a huge part in maintaining homeostasis for our body and allows us to control our heart rate, our blood sugar, our temperature. All of those things that are so important for body function are controlled by the endocrine system. And without this, we would not know when we were needing to take a drink of water, nor would we know when it's time for us to hit a growth spurt, or when it's time to give labor, when it's as a pregnant woman, and all of those important mechanisms for our body. All right, and that is our last slide today. Please go ahead and be ready to pause your screen for the exit ticket. All right, here's your exit ticket. Go ahead and match the items on the left to the items on the right. Each one will only have one matching. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Please do not forget to select your group, or one will be selected for you on Friday.